Welcome to the Liquidity Event, a show about all things personal finance with a laser focus on taxes, financial independence, and equity compensation. Hosted by AJ and Shane of Brooklyn FI, each episode will focus on a personal finance topic, some driven by news headlines and sometimes driven by listener questions. And sometimes you'll just get two money nerds rambling about what they think is interesting. Just a quick note before we get started, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax or investment advice.
Hello, and welcome to the Liquidity Event. We're your hosts, AJ.
And John Owens, pinch hitting for Shane this week.
Whoa, what's up? This is episode 115, being recorded on Wednesday, August 20th, airing on August 23rd. A quick reminder to everyone who has not done this so far, if you want your question answered live on the podcast by financial idiots, experts, you can do so at memo.fm/the liquidity event. We will play your voice message on the air and answer your burning financial question live, unless you're already related to us, because today we're talking about moms, we're talking about dads, we're talking about parental figures in your life, we're talking about how to talk to your parents or the next generation that has looked after you about money, because we got a listener question from number one BKFI fan Snoopy G, also known as Susan Silverberg, my mom, which gave me the idea for this episode. And I know, John, you get a lot of questions from your family about money, so This is going to be a jam-packed episode. How you doing, Mr. Owens?
I'm doing great. I do love at the intro we said, if you're one of the people who hasn't left us a voicemail, like so many people have left us voicemails. We're just talking to those two or three folks that haven't gotten around to it. But
and where in the world do I find you these days?
Yes, I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania these days.
Did you just have to look at the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I had to double check. Where am I?
You don't know where you are. Cool.
I'm like, wait a minute, what's she asking me? We do have a spreadsheet
where
we outline a couple of ideas for this call, but for some reason I wrote that on there and had to double check. It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday. Where are you? You're on the West Coast, aren't you?
I'm on the West Coast. I'm in Palm Springs, California, aka my happy place. It's freaking hot here. It's like
I was going to say, how's Lizardland?
106. Only one or two lizards inside, like to keep the lizards outside here in Palm Springs, but I'm loving Lizardland.
Yeah, well, that's great. And Shane is off at summer camp. We have once again shifted him off to summer camp for a week.
I love when Shane's away at summer camp. We just get some peace and quiet around here.
It's great for all of us here.
We get to get out for cocktails. We just get some quality time together. It's the best.
Yeah, I saw his calendar. He took a bus to summer camp in Pennsylvania. So this is like really more on brand than normal for Shane, but he's off at summer camp and we hope he's doing well. We've only gotten one or two calls from his counselor saying, that he wants to come home and wants to come pick him up. But it's Tuesday. I think he'll get through the week. Yeah,
I think he got caught with some bubble gum or something. So yeah, we wish him all the best at summer camp. Back on the home front, we have some exciting news. Our most popular webinar sounds so lame. Our most popular recorded video discussion of
Let's try this. The debate you are all looking forward to this fall.
The most important debate that's happening this fall. AJ versus John, rent versus buy. Should I rent my house? Should I buy my house? My first house? My second house? Do I need a second house? We will answer all those questions and more. When's that happening?
That is happening on September 24th.
Okay, that's
I did cheat and look at the spreadsheet again. It's about 5 weeks out, folks.
Okay.
A little less than 5 weeks out. We'll go toe-to-toe. This is the fourth year in a row we're doing this. I'm really excited.
And I've won every year, so I look forward to winning again.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works, but nice try. Nice try, folks.
All right. Let's get into it. I don't have a good segue.
Let's talk about the talk, right? Our parents had the talk with us, right? When we were younger, my parents skipped it. But, we're going to talk about the talk you need to have with your parents.
Listeners cannot see my face right now, but I am making a face as if I just drank some sour milk.
Yeah. This is the talk you need to have with your parents. We got to start talking about money with our parents as they're getting older. And AJ, let's just get this out there. Like, that face you just made, I think that's the face that some folks' parents make when you try to talk to them about money, when kids are trying to talk to them, right? It's uncomfortable for some folks.
I think it's uncomfortable for everyone. I've never met anyone where this is an easy fun conversation. I mean, this is an impossible conversation with any relationship in your life, except your financial planner, maybe. And even that can be uncomfortable for some people. Like, we provide a safe space for clients here because they're paying us to talk about money. So therefore, the conversation is maybe a little bit easier. But talking about this with your friends, your significant other, and your parents, this is an awful conversation to talk about money. And when we're talking about specifically money and parents, what do we also have to talk about? We have to talk about death, and no one likes to confront their own death, right? We're having these conversations. Our clients are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like, parents are getting older, and we've had clients, and I know Shane has gone through this, and specifically Shane's actually at summer camp this week, teaching or mentoring kids who have lost a parent. Some people have to go through this a lot earlier than life. We hope that you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s having these conversations with your parents because they're still alive, right? That's kind of what we're talking about here. So how do you even start to broach this conversation as an adult who's probably relatively financially stable, but just wants to check in on your parents and start to have this conversation? Any tips here?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple different ways to go about it, right? There's a very direct route of sitting your parents down, having a conversation about their finances, about their situation. I think that for some folks, that's a really hard thing to do. I think that there's a lot of money anxiety. If we look at generationally, a lot of parents are boomers, right? And maybe they didn't talk to their clients about their children about money over the years. And so it might be hard for the reciprocity to happen there when there wasn't that environment growing up. And so I think there's often a strategy for kind of seeing how soft the ground is first and putting yourself in a position to be a little bit vulnerable and saying, hey, I actually started doing some of my financial planning. I started to do some of my estate planning. I'm worried about this thing. Have you guys done that? You mentioned Jim at the office downtown where you go for like your portfolio review. Like, have you guys talked about estate planning? Is your retirement plan on track? Try to start the conversation. Try to create a situation where they feel comfortable and then see where it leads. I think that's a great way to approach it with parents. What do you think?
I think also just blame your financial planner. And if you have one, actually blame us. If you don't have one, just say, hey, I took I'm responsible. You raised me to be a responsible human. And I actually started talking to someone about money. And one of the questions they asked me was, what can I expect in terms of, is it going to be, I'm going to be in a position where I might need to provide support to you?
Yeah.
Have you saved enough for retirement? Do we know the answer to that question? Have we even asked that question? And or am I going to be in an amazing privileged position to receive money from you, either in your later years or after your passing? Again, this is even saying that out of my mouth, I'm like, LOL, who's going to have this conversation with their parents?
Who's going to say that?
I mean, I did have this conversation with my parents, basically saying all right, idiots, sit down. I'm a financial planner. We got to talk about this. And it was hard.
Is that how you start off your client meetings? All right, idiots, sit down.
Losers. Let's talk about this shit.
Going to have to audit some of these meetings AJ's been doing. Yeah. Great.
For the record, I don't have client meetings anymore, mostly for this reason.
Yeah.
OG clients appreciate it. Anyway, but it didn't happen right away, right? I'm arguably in the best position to have this conversation. This is what I've studied. This is what I do. And it was still hard. It didn't happen right away. It was, hey, can we have this conversation? There was a lot of hemming and hawing from both parents. And my parents aren't together. So it was two totally separate relationships which made it twice as painful, right? So it just gets messy. So I agree, start from a place of vulnerability, kindness, and trepidation. Don't expect the answers on the first conversation.
Yeah. And I think, it's a shame that this happens, but oftentimes it takes some degree of tragedy or something bad happening to motivate people to deal with something like this. And I think, unfortunately, many of us are at an age where if it's not our parents, it's our friends' parents or a coworker's parents or something who's just going through something. Maybe they're going through cancer treatments. Maybe one of them passed away. Maybe something happened, that sort of thing. And it brings top of mind, hey, I don't know if you saw Ethan and Jill's dad passed away.
Yeah.
That was really unexpected. It sounds like maybe they didn't have things in place like mom and dad. We haven't talked about this, but like, what should I do if something happens to you? Who should I go talk to? Where is everything kept? I know there was a safe at one point, but I remember that from a kid. I haven't seen it in years. I don't know where to even get started. And I want to make sure that if, God forbid, something does happen or when something happens, that I can help enact your wishes. Yeah. Right? And so there's another angle to start, which isn't a very cheerful conversation.
No, of course not. And also, like, I can help. I want to help, right? I love that. Asking questions, like, is there anyone I should talk to? Is there anything I should know? But I do think, I really think the most important thing you can do to protect yourself is to know the answer to the question, am I going to have to provide support or can I expect financial support in the future? And that's something that I really want to talk about, which is this concept of the gift tax and giving money away. And I think it works both ways, right? If you are a successful career professional in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you've got a parent who maybe doesn't have enough saved to cover their expenses, are you going to have to step in and start paying for those expenses? Like, that's a gift, right? Yeah. Like, are you going to get taxed on that? Yeah. And then vice versa, if you have parents who have done very well for themselves, you could use some extra cash for the down payment on a house or just some, monthly support or yearly support, whatever. Are you going to get taxed on that if they give you money? So I think the gift tax to me is one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of financial planning. So let's just get the myth out of the way.
Yeah.
If you give someone a gift of money or a house or a car or whatever, you do not have to pay taxes on that gift. This concept of a gift tax only happens when you have given so much away. What's the gift tax exclusion right now? What is like a $12 million?
Gift tax exclusion is $13.6 million in 2024 per person. So married 27 million per couple, something like that.
Right. So if John was not an employee of mine and he was just a buddy, I wanted to give him $10,000, I could just do that. No one would ever know.
Do you need my Venmo? Yeah. Would you like my Venmo?
If I Venmo John $18,000 tomorrow, I would not have to do anything. And nor would John. I would not have to report it to anybody at all. Yeah. Now, if I gave John $18,100,
which I'm fine with. Keep going higher. Keep going. We're getting there.
I'm not going to pay tax, right? Because $18,000 is the annual amount that one person is allowed to give to another person. So if I give John more than $18,000 in a calendar year, I don't actually have to pay taxes on it, but it becomes part of this thing called the taxable gift or your annual lifetime exclusion. So that, what was it, $13 million we talked about?
That $13.5 million or so, you start to chisel away at that $100 at a time, which is part of the advice is like, hey, don't give somebody $18,100 because it's going to cost you more to actually file a gift tax return than the $100 extra that you gave them.
But there's a kicker, right?
Yeah.
I'm married. So Nabil, my husband, can also give you $18,000. So together,
now we're getting somewhere. Yes, you and Nabil, please both give me $18,000.
We could give John $36,000 every year. Now, John is single.
I don't know
why
you haven't started yet. Thank you, please. This is great. We got to send Shane to camp more often.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Shane goes away. I start giving away money to John. But John's single right now, ladies, by the way. Very eligible bachelor right here. In the next couple years, when John inevitably finds the perfect partner for his life, John will now be married. And now, Nabil and I can give $36,000 to John
and my wife. Oh my goodness, I got to update my Hinge to include this. This is huge if I'm going to have both of these coming in.
So in all seriousness, why doesn't everyone do this? It has never made sense to me when you are in a position.
Well, a lot of people don't have an extra $18,000, which is one of the reasons why they wouldn't.
All right, well, that's irrelevant to this conversation. We're talking about in a situation where we have parents. Everyone's tiptoeing around money. Your parents live in a big, beautiful house. You know that they've done well for themselves. You know that they have lawyers, financial advisors. You know there's money there. You just have no idea how much. You have no idea what's going on. You have to have these conversations because, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, older generations should start giving away money if they have it. Big asterisk, if they have extra money, to start giving it away while people are alive. So
I agree.
And I don't think we need to wait for these milestones of buying a house or having a kid or whatever. Like,
well, I don't think we should tie it to that, right? That's not everybody's goal anymore. I think generationally, that's not the same. That's not the same goal that everybody's had before. And I think that, when folks, there is a ton of satisfaction that comes from making that gift and being able to see it happen and see how it impacts a loved one. As opposed to, a big lump sum of money being transferred to them when you're no longer here, right? Which is morbid to think about. But, I think a lot of times folks, though, are afraid. They don't know if they have extra money. They don't know if they can gift. And then I think we have lots of folks, and I think about our clientele, and I would say many folks, our clientele was our kind of first generation, wealth of sorts. They had parents that I would say were more blue collar, middle class upbringing than our clients. Worked very hard, had a successful exit, had something come up, have been diligent savers, good earners, and they're looking the opposite direction of how do they gift to their parents. And I think that sometimes it is. I think it's easier for our generation to accept a gift from our parents than it is for our parents to accept a gift from us. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your parents don't want your money, right? They will do whatever they can. These are complicated emotions, right? Like I have a lot of pride, like, I'm fine. I don't need your money, and then you show up at the house and you're like, why are you living like this? Or you go visit your parents and you're like, I can provide for a better living environment. Like, please let me. Like, you might hear that. So what if you're in a situation where your parents don't want your money? Like, are there ways you can help?
Yes. You just need to trick them. Okay. I grew up in an upper poor household, as we described it. It wasn't middle class; it was upper poor. Is what my dad called it. And I think, when you think about gifting money to your parents or providing, I want to call it economic outpatient care, is the term I want to use.
Yeah, that's gonna go over really well with your parents.
Yeah, exactly. No, don't call it that to them. But this is from the book The Millionaire Next Door, which is a great book if you haven't read it, folks. And but want to help out your parents. Find ways to do it that is different from writing them a check.
Sneaky ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you get your parents on your cell phone plan? Right? Why don't you get your parents on your car insurance, for example, or something like that?
Listeners,
subsidize it that way.
Be real. How many of you are still on your parents' cell phone plan?
Well, I know. Switch it around. Log in. You have access. You're the admin. Your parents don't log into the goddamn
They don't know the password.
They don't know how to get in. Go in there and change the payment method. Okay? Right? It's not that hard.
John, are you still on your parents' cell phone plan?
I have a right to not incriminate myself on this podcast. And yes, I am still on my parents' cell phone plan. Thank you, Judy. Okay, personal shout out to my mom, Judy Owens, who I reimbursed for my portion of the cell phone plan. Yes. Anyway,
so I am not, and that is a very recent development because Shane and I got a Brooklyn FI, so we're on Daddy PKFI's plan.
Actually, so Brooklyn FI reimburses me for the cell phone plan that I reimburse my mother for. It's just really kind of interesting.
So we should just start mailing Judy a check, is what you're saying, instead of you?
Yes. Anyway, if we're being really honest on this podcast, yes. But I think there was
like great way to not drain your parents' bank account. Like pay your own damn cell phone.
Pay your own damn cell phone bill. Yeah, you have $1.8 million and you're 38 years old, client. Pay your parents' cell phone bill down, right? Car insurance, something like that, or the family vacation, right? Pay for them to go on vacation. You think about quality of life stuff. You may go walk around the house. There's a leak. There's this thing. The paneling is still there from 1983. Guess what? Your parents probably never want to move out of that house, right? Yeah. They might be stubborn about that. They don't want to do that, and they don't want you to come in and change it. Well, okay, can I get you to Florida for 2 weeks in the winter? Can I get you to the beach for a week in the summer? Can I do something for our family to create an experience, right?
Yeah.
And this can work both ways. This is also things that if your parents are in a better situation than you are, and they need to spend their money, they can get the other direction.
But I think money and feelings and family are so messed up and so complex that, like, I don't know. I think a lot of parents don't want you to pay for the vacation. I think there's a sense of pride. So like, I think back to your original suggestion, like these conversations, like this is going to be a multi-year unraveling of all this emotional baggage and junk to be like, can we become a family? Not tomorrow, not by Christmas, definitely not at Thanksgiving, where we have more open.
Yeah, this Thanksgiving right after the election,
actually,
you should talk about finances with your parents. Okay, when you fly back to your middle America home from your coastal elite city, that's a great idea to really make sure you're not getting the inheritance.
We picked the wrong year to have this conversation. It's gonna take a long time. So let's also be patient with our parents. Let's not expect results right away. They might not have they might be embarrassed that they don't have the password to the Charles Schwab account. They might be embarrassed that they lost the guy's name who's looking after their pension. And that's okay. So you have to come from a place of kindness and patience and say, oh, no big deal. Do you remember the name of the firm at all? And if your parents, for example, like a lot of folks are teachers or were professors and are in this system. If your parents were teachers or professors, there's a very good chance that their retirement plan is run by TIAA, right? Yep. Once we have that information, we have their name, we have their social security number, like we can go and find information. And that's what you, the millennial, the Gen Xer, you can help with that. You have those skills, but you have to be kind because in my experience, I have come in not kind, and I have not gotten the results that I wanted, right? Because I was impatient, and I'm flabbergasted that passwords were lost, and that you've immediately put someone on their heels in a place of defense and shame, and no one likes to feel shame about money. So, be nice. Former AJ 2022.
Listen. I think the technology piece can be especially frustrating for folks, right? And parents, I mean, like have their little notebook and their handwriting, you can't understand what their passwords, in it, and they still do a lot of things on paper. And it is a thing to be patient. You need to be patient with. I also think sometimes, hey, there may be a situation where your parents are like, listen, like I'm not comfortable talking about money with you, or or you may not feel comfortable talking about it with them from like an expertise perspective, right? And that's where, it's either getting a relationship, understanding who they have a relationship with to manage this. Who is their attorney? Who is their accountant? Who is their financial planner? Do they have those things? Yeah. And if not, maybe helping them find one, because ultimately, in our roles as financial planners, if something bad happens, we're some of the first people that get a phone call. And we typically know where the estate planning documents are and who is in charge and where most of the accounts are. And we can help with that. The tricky part is when your parents aren't organized, they haven't done some of this. Maybe they're not going to run out of money. They just haven't done any planning. They haven't done any organization.
Or they did, but it was 30 years ago. That's
exactly. Yeah, they updated their estate plan when you were born.
Right.
And haven't since.
And also, families are a lot more complex than they used to be, right? Divorce was a lot less common. Now we have second marriages, third marriages, and it gets complicated. And if you're the kid coming to your, one of your parents with their new spouse or, the second spouse or the third spouse or the fourth spouse, you're not coming there trying to steal this, exclude the spouse from all the planning. Like, that's why you have to be so open, and you have to kind of would you say walk on the grass, or test the grass, test the water?
You have to see how soft the ground is. Is that what I said?
See how soft the ground is. I like that. Where it's like, hey, I'm just wondering what's up. Is there an estate plan? I'm not trying to cut anyone out of the will. I just want to know if there is a will.
Yeah.
Because if there is not, it's going to take all of us 3 years to talk through this and get this will in place.
Yeah. And I think that it is very easy to punt on things that deal with our mortality. Yeah. And to put them off and say, well, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that right now. I'm not worried about that right now. But you're setting yourself up for a potential mess in the future, and you're setting yourself up for surprises that you can't anticipate, which is the podcast Shane and I did a few months ago of the guy who didn't update his beneficiary from his girlfriend in 1987, who's getting $1 million 40 years after they broke up.
Happens all the time. I remember in my going through CFP school, there was a woman who was in her 60s who her father had just passed away, and the same exact thing happened. The 401k beneficiary was the first wife that no one even talked to in decades. And they were like, they couldn't even find her. That was the issue. It wasn't even like she wanted it. So why is an estate plan so important? Why is a will so important? Because honestly, it's just a review of all that stuff. Even if you don't actually get the will executed, and I'm going to regret saying this, like you have to get the will executed, but even just going through the process of like finding all this stuff, setting up a trust, thinking about this, I think a great line to say to your parents is, I know you don't want to get a will in place, but just so you know, if you don't, your estate's going to go through probate, which means in a place like New York City, it could take 2 years or more for me to even get access to your accounts just because you didn't file this document that put stuff in a really simple trust, and it's lack of education, right? People hear trust and they think trust fund. And you're like, no, Dad, I don't want a trust fund. I just don't want a judge who's got 600 cases ahead of me being the person to determine whether I can even look at your 401k.
Well, and I think that a lot of folks are intimidated and scared by this complicated stuff they don't understand. Revocable trusts are very straightforward, very simple. It's like a will on steroids that inevitably saves your family time, headache on administration, tends to save on cost.
Yeah.
And also likely means that your loved ones who you want, or whoever, maybe it's charity, maybe it's, friends, whatever it might be, whoever you want to get your assets, likely get them a bit quicker.
Right. And that's if you do it the right way. Right. I mean, literally what happens in a court is if there's no will, probate is the process of the court painstakingly going through all the assets and figuring out where it goes. If you've got a will, a super simple will with a revocable trust, they read the will and they go, oh, John's assets go to the John Owens Revocable Trust. Cool. Next case.
Yeah.
Right.
And hopefully everything's already titled into the trust that should be. Sometimes retirement accounts shouldn't go into a trust, but that's a whole other, they could do a whole episode on that. But hopefully it's set up that way that there's very little that needs to even go through probate and through the will process if you do it right. I think the other thing that's top of mind, and you and Shane and you and I have talked on this podcast at length about scams, but the people who they're going after in many cases are our parents. And my mom will send me screenshots if I got this text message. Yep. I'm like, don't click it, delete it, don't ever click it, don't ever look at it.
Let's go with the theme of this episode, though. Remember, be really kind, right? So, yes, you can be forceful. Don't click it. But also, you can always call me. You can always text me if you're suspicious at all. I am always available for a second opinion or a second pair of eyes. Never feel like you're bothering me if you're not sure if something smells right. Like, I'm always happy. No judgment here. Again, people just don't like to be judged. Yeah, I mean, this whole episode, my mom texted me, should I freeze my credit? My friend sent me this thing about this big Social Security Administration breach. Like, great question, right? Like, should you freeze your credit? And I was kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't know. And I didn't actually really have an opinion on it. Yeah. And I was like, why don't you go ask your financial advisor? Because I remembered that she has one, which is great. Yeah. Like, and if you don't have that option to say, like, who is my parents' financial advisor? Help them send them. I mean, I'm saying this and I'm just like rolling my eyes at myself because it's hard. Like, you're going to send them lists and they're going to go, oh, we haven't gotten to it. Like, we haven't gotten to it. Like, then you have to follow up at Christmas. Remember, not Thanksgiving. Bad things happen at Thanksgiving.
Bad things happen at Thanksgiving. I would love to be a fly on the wall at the Ayers Croissant Thanksgiving. It sounds like this sounds like
there are now 3 because everyone can't be in the same room.
On location podcast episode. Oh, who do we have over here? Come on down, pull up a mic. What happened?
Anyway, where are we?
Well, I think tying in with that of when to have a conversation, you give your parents a list of advisors. Are they going to follow up? That sort of thing, right? I think, that may be uncomfortable for you because you don't know how to find an advisor. That may be uncomfortable for your parents because they have a list. They don't know who to choose from. They don't know how to differentiate. We do not work with a ton of retirees. We work with some. If you need somebody to point you in the right direction, point your parents in the right direction, say, hey, maybe we could talk to them, help them. Maybe somebody else can, send them to us. We will do that. Yeah. I want our clients' parents and all of our listeners' parents to be taken care of. Right? This is one of the biggest threats to your financial situation is if you need to provide financial support to your parents and you're not prepared for it, you're not planning for it, and then it's going to be some big surprise later on. You know, what you don't want this conversation to happen is on Thanksgiving when you show up and be like, your parents are like, yeah, this is going to be the last Thanksgiving in this house because we're getting foreclosed on. And so we're actually moving in with you now. And we ran out of money. We never really talked about this because we didn't really want to, and we didn't think we were going to live this long, so we didn't think it would be an issue. That'll be a memorable Thanksgiving, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a little bit of pain now to avoid a lot of pain later. Which is
basically all of financial planning in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, that's the thing. It's like, and also if you haven't started a financial planning relationship with a planner, like start one together with your parent. I'm not saying you go to the same planner. You could, but like go
but simultaneously
together, compare notes. Like, oh, what did yours say? What did yours say? Like, I don't know. What are like the most common like mom texts? Like, I think, should I freeze my credit? Can you do my tax return for me? To which the answer is no.
Is my 401k okay? I get that one fairly often with like a screenshot of like some photo my mom took on her. Any photo my mom sends is a screenshot, even if it's of another photo. And so, including like one she gets developed sometimes, that'll be like a screenshot, you know. Anyway, but it's always a screenshot and like, is this okay? And it's like, yes, it is. Or no, it isn't. We need to change it. Let's log in together the next time you're here. My mom in particular, shout out, hopefully Judy listens to this episode, but likes the little, whether her retirement looks sunny or not. It's very important to her when she logs into her 403b. It looked a little cloudy, so I changed my percentage. Those are things.
Yeah, also people who stop working or take a step back from working find themselves with a lot of time on their hands. When people have a lot of time on their hands, they get bored often. And if they don't have a hobby like golfing or fishing or a favorite television program that they watch all day long every day, like what do? They start looking for ways to quote unquote be useful. And what is a very common thing that happens, I don't want to judge, I don't want to do stereotypes here, but to men in their 60s who just retired from corporate life where they were needed every day and now they're no longer needed, they look for ways to make more money. And what do they do? They manage
their portfolio.
They manage their own portfolio, and they sometimes, we hear stories about this all the time, and what we don't hear about are the people who are too embarrassed to tell these stories. And we see entire fortunes that families have worked many generations or one generation or decades to build up, gone overnight, either because of a bad actor or advisor, a bad insurance product they were sold, or just mucking around in their own portfolios and day trading stocks when they have no business doing that. If you've made it to 65 and you've got a spouse and kids and you've got 7 figures in your retirement, you are mostly good, right? Of course, I'm saying that with an asterisk, like, chances are you're going to be okay, and someone can help you tweak here and there. So don't mess around with it. Like, why are we doing this? Like, go get a hobby.
And I think that what often comes up when I've had conversations with prospective clients, with parents of clients over the years, what I often hear from folks, especially who are maybe doing it on their own or something like that, is that they come into it and they're like, I'm a pretty conservative investor. We got a pretty conservative portfolio. And so, like, okay, let's pull it up. Let's take a look.
Yeah, what you got?
And it's, okay, I own about 20 stocks that are all in the Dow or the S&P, and they make up about 70% of my portfolio, and I have, a 10% of my allocation. Somebody told me I should buy some international, so 10% of it's in an international ETF, and then I have about 20% in treasuries. And so you're retired. I just read
an article about NVIDIA, so I just moved 50% of my portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. I bought some NVIDIA a little while back. Because I'm
a smart investor. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so, and let's say of those 20 stocks that are down, S&P companies, it's 8% Apple, 8% some other
Google,
Intel
Netflix,
or something like that.
FANG stocks,
Google, whatever. And so it's like, I look at this and I'm like, this is not really a conservative allocation. It's a fairly aggressive allocation. It's probably done quite well if some of those names are in tech over these years. And bonds are doing a little bit better. Interest rates are up, But just because your portfolio has done well over the last 15 years, which would be, your peak earning years, if you're somebody who's 65 and recently retired, and your peak savings time frame, does not necessarily mean it's conservative, and does not necessarily mean it's designed to take you through this kind of next chapter of things. And so a lot of times, like I wouldn't call this a very conservative portfolio. It's
super
80%
aggressive.
stocks and has a bunch of concentrated positions in it. And I don't think we need to go down to some 20% stock, 30% stock allocation.
Not moving you to all cash,
Exactly, but we could dial this back, and you don't need to, drive into if we're on this journey to retirement, we don't need to drive into the bend doing like 85 miles an hour and say, let's see what happens.
But that's the whole game of retirement. Like, traditional financial planning is based on models of saying, save as much as you possibly can, the earliest you can, be as aggressive as you can. And when you get to critical mass, when you get to a number, whatever that number is, which your financial planner can help you figure out, when you get to that number, there is no reason why you need to be, why the aggressive or the risk tolerance has to be turned up to 11, right?
Yeah.
You can turn it down a little bit, right? Like, and I think that's like I see this over and over again. And, I play a lot of golf, folks, and I meet a lot of retired 65-year-old men.
Well, because those are the people who golf mostly.
Those are the people who, and I wish they would golf more, because they're always asking me for stock tips, and I just, politely kind of roll my eyes and talk them away from that. And I'm just like, you guys are just bored. Like, leave your freaking portfolio alone. Like, go do something else. Like, the best thing.
Golf more.
Yeah, that is literally a better use. That is a better way to grow your net worth, is to spend money golfing rather than mucking around and buying and trading individual stocks, in my opinion.
So, okay.
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Some of the big takeaways are, like, these are crucial conversations to have. Your parents don't know, I don't quote Rumsfeld very often, but it's the unknown unknowns that are scary here. And first Rumsfeld quote on the podcast, everybody? I don't know. It's the unknown unknowns that are scary here. And we don't know what we don't know about our parents' financial situation. We don't know what our parents don't know about their own situation. And that's where the risk is, right? Yeah. The risk is in not knowing and in not having a plan. And start these conversations, start them slowly, see what the ground feels like, and ultimately help them get where they want to go. And you can really help that, and it'll help you in the long term, regardless of what their financial situation looks like.
Yep.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Totally. And ways to start that conversation are, hey, and again, don't rush them. Don't put a timeline on it. Like, can we start to have conversations about money when you're comfortable? Maybe you could have a week or two to gather some documents, and let's set some time on the calendar, and let's just talk about it. I have a few questions. I'm sure you have questions for me. Like, can we become a family that's more open about money? Because I think it will strengthen our relationship. And if we don't have these conversations, it will undoubtedly tear us apart. Before we get ready to close, I want to say something that I think is a statement that, but anyway, I'll just say it. Do not leave your property to more than one person. Do not leave your vacation property split among your 3 kids. Do not leave your primary residence to your uncle and your sister, or because they're both equally important to you. Do not do that. You are guaranteeing that those people will end up hating each other within 6 to 18 months, right?
Okay. So this is where having a trust comes in very handy. So you can leave a piece of property to the trust, and you have a trustee who is in charge to decide what happens to it. But the old age, I'm going to list this piece of property to these 2 people or sign it over to them while I'm alive, is going to create chaos. People are not going to agree on things. You often need unanimous agreement in order to get anything done. And it is going to create a nightmare that will go on for generations. And I know this because I've seen it in my own family.
Literally, we've all seen it.
We've all seen it.
If your family is in a privileged position to have owned property at any point, every single person has gone through this, because it is almost never done correctly, because people are up in
because great-grandma's vision of kumbaya does not necessarily come to reality over time with generations, right?
And also, like, it's also human. It's like, great, maybe when she did it, everyone was in the same position, and then life happens and someone got sick and now someone's in debt, and I don't give a shit about the Cape Cod vacation house. I need $100,000 to pay for my cancer treatments right now, so I want to sell my share. Like, shit happens. We have to have flexibility in our estate planning, which is why you need a professional. At the end of the day, that's the thing. Like, if everything goes awesome, you don't need us, right? If everything in your life goes perfectly and the stock market does exactly what we wanted to do over a 100-year period, you absolutely don't need lawyers, professionals. But there's going to be volatility. That's a guarantee. Yeah. So therefore, don't be a fucking idiot and hire some people who know what they're doing to help you.
There you go, folks. You heard it from AJ. Don't be a fucking idiot and hire the right people.
Okay, so speaking of fucking idiots, there's this great... there's a fantastic writer. Her name is Chanel Reynolds. Her website. This is related to fucking idiot. Her website is getyourshittogether.org.
I would love an email address at that URL.
I'm going to do AJ at don'tbeafuckingidiot.org.
.org. It's a nonprofit. Don't be a fucking idiot.
She wrote a book called What Matters Most. And earlier we were talking about when do you get your shit together? Usually when something really bad happened and something horribly, horribly tragic happened in her life. Her husband, I think he was in a bike accident. It was like awful, horrible. And then he's like in the hospital recovering, and she has to go through all this shit. She's got young kids. She's trying to figure out where the money is. She's trying to figure out his job, his healthcare, and her pain becomes this like incredible resource for folks who are going through this. So as you're starting to have these conversations, send your parents getyourshittogether.org or buy them a copy of her book. I love it. I've given it out to many people. It's just she's a great writer. It's a great story. And it really puts things in perspective for people who are lucky enough to have not gone through this like horrible tragedy. So
yeah, jeez. No, I think some great takeaways here today. Talk to your parents. Make a plan. Don't be a fucking idiot. Don't be an idiot, as AJ said. Let me go update our core values now. Let's add that one in. If you do nothing else, don't. Anyway, but no, great. Glad we could talk about this. Hopefully your mom listens to the podcast, my mom listens to the podcast, and you all just start reimbursing my mom for the cell phone. It might be a little bit easier. So,
and again, like our parents, like they did well, right? Your parents did a great job raising you. Like, bravo, clap, clap. Use that. For that to your advantage to say like we need to figure out this together. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. You can email us your financial problems at liquidityevent@brooklynfi.com. Leave us a voicemail memo.fm/liquidityevent. We will play it on the air if anyone ever leaves us a voicemail. And finally, Stans can leave us a review.
If you want to be weird about it.
If you want to be weird about it. Don't be weird. It's cool to leave reviews. All right, bye. See you guys next week.
Bye.